dismissals can be made by the mayor, appointments with the concurrence of the council, but not on dismissals. The mayor can make that. Really, you see department heads in that same kind of situation where simply the election of a new mayor could bring, the separation of their employment, again, for no cause of their own. So the philosophy behind the severance is that to attract quality and qualified individuals, that there's some backstop for that. Where I think the issue could come up is how much severance should you get? And is this table, out of some government HR director's manual? No, it's not. It was what was felt to be appropriate at the time by the Washougal Council at the time this was adopted, based on the recommendation of the administration. In city manager form of government, where you don't have a strong mayor, the city manager is more vulnerable in that regard to the elected body, but the department heads are not at the will of the mayor or of the council. The chiefs and the other department heads report to the city manager. So you may be less likely to see specific codified and policy settings language for department heads in a city manager. And it's definitely something that you see routinely in employment agreements for folks in positions like my own. And those are typically individually negotiated. And so they're, as you can imagine, they're probably across the board, depending upon, the parties and what they come up with. But what we did specifically in my agreement was to try to point to existing policy that was in place as much as possible. We thought that was
I have to assume that's why we're looking at it now. So we can either, keep the policy or change the policy for the next major department head hire that we have.
Right. That's what I understood was the conversation. Yeah. So this may be a little bit squirrelier of an issue, I think, on the severance. It's not as straightforward, perhaps, as a vacation accrual rate.
Yeah, I'd consider vacation hours part of a benefit package, so it's, something that you can count almost toward their salary. You're giving them time off with pay, so.
Well, they also have the ability to buy it back, so it
exactly
can become
totally, yeah,
a part of salary.
It can be a liability.
Sort of.
It's on the books as a liability because upon separation, it's paid.
right, yeah.
There's a cap.
How much is paid on separation?
Vacate all of the vacation.
Up to the maximum, wherever they have accrued. And that's across the board. That's not just with the department heads or the bid managers. That goes through the contracts as well.
Right. That's
Two questions. One was on probation, and you pretty much answered my first comment about that. But on the probation, after you made a couple comments, do we have a standard probation? In other words, do firefighters, are they on probation for a year?
12. Police and fire, 12.
So how about department heads? Is it a standard that department heads are on probation for 12 months? 6 months?
6 months.
It's policy?
I don't know if
I don't
that
know
is
whether
well
it is or not.
documented. I don't think that's really
Should it
well
be a
documented.
policy?
Yeah.
Probably because we have others documented through the contracts, but the non-represented, I don't think we've been explicit with that and documenting that. Probably should be captured in there.
Yes.
I kind of think it should be brought back at least for the discussion that it's either 6 months. And now, can that be negotiated as in the contract that Dave had? Can you negotiate that probationary period or not?
I don't know that you would want to.
I don't think so, but.
And even in the case of Dave's contract, even though it doesn't talk about, I don't recall, Dave, that we actually had probation language in there. We have a review at 6 months.
Right. It's, when you have an employment agreement, and when I serve totally at the will of the mayor, I'm always on probation. I think that's the way I look at it.
That's exactly right.
Right.
In your position, that's exactly right.
Right. And frankly, in the absence of that language here and understanding that this is an at-will state and understanding how our code reads, around department heads, really, I think all of us would approach it the same way, that we're constantly, you know, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, that's the state of existence that, you know, department heads have in this community, and we accept that. And that's part of the context, and you know, we're here to do the best job that we can for you. However, there are other positions in the immediate tier below that, and then down into the line of the organization where you know, probation might need to be specifically spelled out. I haven't reviewed that specific issue in our bargaining agreements, but it's in our bargaining agreements, and I don't know if there's anything about that for, say, managers.
We'll bring that piece back the next time around. We're
Yeah.
going to discuss that. The other question I have is, everybody with the exception of Jeanette and RJ is there, filling in the interim period, do they get department head benefits? Immediately starting the time they're interim? And then if it becomes somebody else, does he fall backwards? Because I know Joanne was interim, Ron and Ron were both interim for a period of time.
I can only speak to when I was interim. I received an out-of-class pay, which is one step of where you are, but did not receive department head benefits until I was department head. That doesn't mean that that's,
I just want to ask the
Everyone
question, because it's
did.
something that we should address, and that when you're interim, you're doing the job. You may not be never there, but should you get 24 hours per month, if you've now moved in after 16 years, should you get the 24 hours a month even though you're interim?
Those types of questions can be answered. You can have out of class at the department head level. I'm not familiar with, frankly, interim appointments, acting appointments, I think have probably been case by case, and that is not unusual. I know that in prior experience in multiple communities, I've found myself in acting or interim roles, and as many places, as many times as I found myself in that situation, were as many different ways that it was approached, and it just depended on the situation. But doesn't mean that it couldn't be.
Well, so we'll go over the policy. If we don't have one, we should
No,
discuss that.
that's one of the reasons for going through this as well, is to be able to capture those things that maybe we aren't doing. You know, one of my goals is, no surprise, trying to make things as standard as they can be and take things out of discretion where they shouldn't necessarily be left to discretion. And you all may get some communications as well. The Columbian's doing a story on, well, I think they started out as city administrator and city manager contracts, and they're kind of going through this whole thing in this fact-finding mission right now and trying to see what differences are throughout the county. They picked up on some others that we had where we had differences in contracts versus what's in the department head manuals, and they're going to be asking questions on those as well. But my response to them as well is the same as when we put Dave's contract in place. You know, as much as we absolutely can, unless they are minor things here or there, you know, everybody should fall back to that manual. If there's a problem, something tells me there's a problem with the manual and we should adjust it